Good morning, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome across all time zones. It's now 3 o'clock in Norway, and we are ready to start this very important, very interesting meeting. This 11th webinar of the Praia Group task team on participation in political and public affairs. We will, during this next 1.5 hours, present a guidance on using electoral administrative data to produce statistics on inclusive political participation. It's a long title. Our task team is a part of the Praia Group on governance statistics. We are chaired by Ine Seve, the National Statistical Office of Cabo Verde, and thank you for them for letting us present here today. Today's meeting, we will have Spanish and French interpretation, and you can just click on the screen below here, and then you can get the interpretation from our very skilled interpreters. Then we are ready to start. Let's move on to the next slide. Since I see that there are many new names that have joined us today, I wanted to put our work a little bit into perspective. So if we get the next slide, then you can see some of the key milestones of the Praia Group and what we have been working on over the last decade.
Just a second, Björn. I
Yeah.
have trouble moving the slides for some reason. So let me stop share and resharing.
It's good with a short break.
It's good to have a short break, yes.
Yeah, before we move on. I can say that the Praia Group has a 10-year anniversary this year. It was established back in 2015 at the 46th UN Statistical Commission. And the general idea behind the Praia Group was to get better, or to get the National Statistical officers more involved in developing statistics on some of the major dimensions of governance. So in the first period, the group developed a conceptual measurement framework for governance statistics. And this was materialized in a dedicated handbook that described 8 different dimensions of governance. And here, participation in political and public affairs was one of the dimensions that was identified, and that we saw that this needed further development. This needed to be developed further. And then, since 2021, this task team that we have been working in has developed instruments that can be used to improve statistics in this domain. And today we will present one of these instruments more in detail, and you will get to know it more. Subsequently, we plan to present all of this work to the UN Statistical Commission in March next year. Okay, why have we started on this work? What we saw when the task team was established, and the starting point for our work was that it stems from we have observed some international trends. We see declining voter turnout. We see increasing disengagement from public life. We see declining trust in governments. We see more disinformation in the public sphere. But also the acknowledgement that many NSOs or statistical systems, they were not really in a position to answer questions that arise around these international trends. Furthermore, there were no international guidance for NSOs to produce comparable statistics on this domain and in this area. So that was kind of the starting point of our work and why the task team was established. Who is a member of the task team? It has been chaired by Statistics Norway, but we have received a lot of support and from the UNDP and UN Women, who have been very active in supporting the team. In addition to that, there has been an NSOs, research institutions, international and regional organizations, academia, civil society, more than around 100 members from all regions of the world. So before we move on now to the next and delve into the instruments or the core products of the group, we wanted to have a quick poll to see your engagement or your knowledge of the topics that we're going to discuss today. This is relatively new for us, so let's hope this works. And please answer the polls that should appear now on your screen. So I can see that there are some of you who have managed to participate. Okay. I think I need some assistance from either Sina or others to give some of the results that they don't appear on my screen. For the first question, have you or your colleagues in your NSO worked directly with an electoral management body before? And you can see that the answers here are more or less divided, and some have, many haven't. A few replied that your NSO currently publish any electoral statistics on its website. Okay, I think we will stop sharing that part for now and move on. We will come back with some more polls, and let's hope that it works technically flawlessly in the next round. Then, as I said, the task team has been working on two kind of instruments or products in order to better measure and to better produce statistics on political and public affairs. The first one is a post-election survey on political and civic participation. This is a standalone or could also be a supplement survey. It has been presented in many of the other meetings of this task team, so we will not dwell a lot into that today. And the detailed questionnaire was also shared with the team earlier this month. The second product of the team has been the guidance on the use of electoral administrative data. We will go really into the details on this today. A version has already been shared with along with the invitation to this meeting, and we hope that as many as possible of you have had a chance to look to it and look at the context. We will come back with more info on this in the next slides. But only to recapitulate a little bit on the survey questionnaire, if we move on to the next slide. On the survey questionnaires, it included 3 different sections. We have some problems with the technical things here, with moving along on the
Yes. We have some problems. I'm not sure what's happening.
Try clicking. I'm not sure if you've done already. Like if you click back on the screen where the presentation is, Ionica, next time, because I think it always hops out as soon as you go on the participant list or on any of the other boxes.
Okay. All right.
Okay, a few more words about the survey questionnaire. That was the first product of the task team. It is divided into 3 sections: participation in electoral processes, participation in political and civic life, and the last one on what we have called the enabling environment of participation. And here we have identified a few core questions that we see that are really kind of important in order to measure political participation and how this is kind of could be reflected in a survey. We spent a lot of time developing this, collecting examples from NSOs and electoral surveys all over the world. And based on the different feedbacks that we got from different national experiences, we have developed a version that is now ready, that was ready for testing. And if we go on to the next slide, we can show that the survey has been tested in very kind of diverse settings in different parts of the world, different national contexts. We have gone through the testings in diverse environments, both cognitive testing first, and then also field and pilot testings with large samples in a diverse group of countries. You can see the flags of the different countries that have been represented. And as I said, the draft survey questionnaire was shared with the whole task team earlier this month. So that brings us along to the topic of today. Then we have arrived to that part. The guidance on the use of electoral administrative data to produce statistics on political participation. We know that this is, for many NSOs, this is a new topic. This is an area that has not really been covered by national statistical offices. For many, this is new. But then again, we also have examples of areas, countries that produce a lot of statistics on this domain. So this guide will be the first of its kind. And for many of you, it will be breaking new statistical ground. It describes how electoral data is produced by electoral management bodies and how these data can be used by the NSOs in producing official statistics on inclusive political participation. It is aligned with existing international statistical standards and also international guidance on inclusive electoral processes and electoral design. We describe many different country contexts in the guide, and we will come back to this in the later presentation. But what we want to emphasize is that it's meant to be a practical guide where we share tools for establishing this cooperation between NSOs and EMBs. So many of you might have questions now. How do we approach this? We hope that the guide can give you some good examples in that respect. So then I will move on to the next slide, and I will hand. We had planned a second round of polls before we move on to really dig deep into the next segment. So if we try the next round of polls and see if that works better technically this time. Then the question is, for those of you already working with electoral data, which types of electoral data do you work with? And there are some alternatives here: registered voter data, candidate data, voter turnout data, election results data. And for everyone, which types of electoral data do you work with? yeah, maybe say that you have to use, yeah, you get the QR code and use your phone's camera to scan the QR code. Okay, I think we will end it there. There was there were some responses with examples of persons or officers that use all these data. Yeah, I'm not sure we will continue with this and that it's working well. But let's move on with the presentation. I will now hand over to Ionica Berovescu from UN Women and say that she has played an instrumental role in developing this guide. And I very much look forward to the presentation that the next part of the presentation that now comes up. Over to you, Ionica.
Thank you so much, Vebjørn. Good afternoon, good morning, hello to everybody. We are very happy to be at this stage of sharing with you a complete draft of the publication. And we want to thank you so much to all of you who provided us with examples from your own country context. This was really great for us to understand the different context and to design a guidance that responds to this different context. It is my pleasure to present quickly the structure of the guidance on behalf of the task team, and then I will move into the chapters 1 to 3, and then we'll have a little discussion. If you have questions or if you had comments. After that break, we will move to chapters 4 and 5, which are going to be presented by my colleagues from Statistics Norway. And we will have another round of discussions at the end of that presentation. The guidance is structured in a simple way in 5 chapters. And each chapter provides the foundation for the next one. But also we included enough information in each and one of the chapters to be able to, if you want to start with another chapter, not to feel lost in your readings. So the first chapter is the chapter that provides the conceptual framework for the guidance. It's showing key terms and definitions that are going to help the data utilization. It shows how electoral administrative data are different from other administrative data sources and provides a big picture of the electoral administrative data to help you navigate the entire guidance. In the second chapter, we focus on national legal frameworks on electoral administrative data. There we are going to discuss 3 types of legal framework that support data production at electoral management bodies, the data sharing between other public entities, such as entities maintaining civil registration or population registers or ID management systems, sharing the data with DMB for the purpose of voter registration, and legal framework supporting administrative data utilization by national statistical offices. The third chapter goes into deep describing data collection at the EMBs, what and how the information is collected, what are the quality assurance mechanisms, and what type of data dissemination is to be expected by EMBs. We are covering the 4 core types of electoral data: the registered voter data, candidate data, voter turnout data, and election results data. This first part of the guidance provides the foundation for data utilization by the NSOs. Basically, we are giving the conceptual tools, the legal framework tools, and the data collection and the understanding of the data collection that is happening at the electoral management bodies. Based on this, chapters 4 and 5 are providing direct tools to the national statistical offices. In chapter 4, we are showing how de facto national statistical offices utilize electoral administrative data to calculate core indicators on inclusive participation in elections, to do analysis and visualization based on this data, to link the data from electoral management bodies with data from other administrative data sources, and to integrate electoral data in current statistical products developed by the NSO. In chapter 5, we go a step forward and we provide guidance on initiating and sustaining partnership between national statistical offices and EMBs through a range of informal and formal mechanisms. And we describe some models of electoral data sharing. Now let's go to the chapter 1. This is the one I mentioned that is covering the scope of electoral administrative data, terms of definition. So what is the purpose of this chapter? To introduce key terms and definitions related to electoral data, to provide a big picture of the type of electoral administrative data that this guidance focuses on, the registered voters, candidates, elected candidates, and then discuss key elements that differentiate electoral administrative data from other administrative data sources. And these are the electoral cycle as basis for electoral data updates, the geography of elections, and potential and constraints in data granularity. The basic sources we use for the content of this chapter are national electoral legal frameworks reviewed by a team at UN Women in 163 countries, and also United Nations and other international guidance on electoral processes. The information is structured in the chapter following the logic of the activities undertaken by the EMBs that result in data. And I'm going to show you the next chart just to understand a bit what I'm talking about. This chart here is the core visual in the first chapter, and basically it discusses electoral activities and resulting call electoral registers and data systems. So there are a couple elements that we need to pay attention in this chart. First of all, is the organization by electoral cycle stages, the pre-election and election period, the polling day up to election results, and the post-election period. At the same time, you will see in the white boxes the type of administrative activities that EMBs are taken to implement elections. For example, in the pre-election period and election period, the EMBs are managing voter information to ensure voter eligibility and inclusiveness. The result of this activity are voter registers, so a type of electoral data system. The candidate data, the green boxes are the resulting data from the administrative processes undertaken. So we have the stages of elections, we have the activities in white boxes, and then we have the resulting data in green boxes. Another element that is added to this picture is actually the flow of information, which is very important. And there are, let's say, two parts of this flow of information. First of all, the big one, it's the information that supports the voter registration. Basically, existing existing administrative records can be used as basis for the voter registration, either by providing records of persons that are eligible to vote, or by providing information to check the registration of voters. The voter registration may be further linked to the voter turnout data later in the polling day. And in the post-election period, this is going, the two types of data may be disseminated by the EMBs in terms of information or statistics on the registered voters and voter turnout. The second part of the data flows is about the candidate data. This information is coming from party and independent candidates nominations that are registered by the EMBs. The candidate data also provides a template for the next stage of the electoral cycle to input data and to obtain voting results and elected candidate data. At the end of the process, we hope that the EMBs are sharing the data with a range of national stakeholders. And for us, the important one and subject of this guidance are the NSOs. So in this chapter, basically, we are organizing it by types of activities: voter registration, candidate registration, conducting polling, counting and tabulating votes. These are the types of activities that EMBs are undertaking. And for each of them, we are providing the relevant terms and definitions. So for example, for the voter registration, we are defining what is an eligible voter, what is a registered voter, and then we go in parallel and define what is a voter register, what is the voter list. So we have this kind of dual definitions. We define the quality of a person as a voter or as a candidate, and then the type of data. Other terms that we are defining in chapter 1 are those related to types and levels of elections, and those related to electoral districts and boundary delimitation. The second chapter is the chapter on national legal frameworks on electoral data and institutional setups. The purpose of the chapter is to show that national legal frameworks regulate electoral administrative data collection and data sharing through three components. On one side, we have the electoral frameworks, which give the EMBs the mandate to develop and utilize voter register, candidates data set, voter turnout data, and election results data for the purpose of organizing elections, and also provide the overall guidance on how this should be done by the EMBs. A second component is law regarding the sharing of data from CV registration, population registers, and ID management system to input or validate voter registration information. And finally, the last one that you are very familiar with, statistical laws regulating use of administrative data by NSOs to produce official statistics on participation in elections. Basic sources for the content of the chapter were national electoral legal frameworks in 163 countries. These are the countries that we could access the electoral legal frameworks. They were reviewed by a team at UN Women. Also in-depth analysis of EMB websites, rules and regulations for 40 countries. But also we have a set of international guidance from United Nations and other entities that could help us structure even further the chapter. So some of these guidance are about electoral processes. Some of some of the guidance come from other sources that, again, you are very familiar with, the ones related to legal identity, civil registration, population registers, and ID management systems, including legislative frameworks supporting them, and guidance on modernizing statistical legislation. And here is the visual that is putting everything together, just to have the complete picture. So I'm going to start in the middle, the electoral legal framework. As I mentioned, give the EMBs the mandate to develop and utilize electoral data. They also determined various institutional configurations of EMBs, distribution of data responsibilities within the electoral management bodies, use of ICTs, data flows within the EMBs and between EMBs and other entities, the data sharing. This is important because, first of all, we need to know as national statistical offices with whom to talk at the EMBs, what are the different entities that are going to be in charge of data. We need to know the centralization of the data, the use of ICT, because that's going to impact the format of the data that is going to be available at the end of the electoral processes, and some of the data sharing practices. On the left side, we have the laws related to sharing of data from other public entities to produce or validate electoral data. And here we have the civil registration, basically the records of births and deaths, among other civil events. We should put there marriage, divorce, which are going to have an impact on changing the names of the person, which have further implications for the registration processes. The population registers, which are used in about half of countries or a bit more to provide records for the voter register in passive registration system, and identity management system, which provide records of persons' IDs, including biometric characteristics that allow the verification of a person's legal identity, again, that could be used by some countries in either compiling a voter register or verifying some of the data that potential voters submitted for registration. Finally, on the right side, at the end of the process, we have the statistical laws, including legal provisions related to use of administrative data by NSOs for the purpose of producing official statistics. And there are two aspects that are dominant there. First of all is access to administrative data, which NSO as coordinating of official statistics, they do have, and then confidentiality of information when it comes to individual level data. There are a lot more details, of course, in the chapters, just to mention that some of the individual level data may be confidential. The data that is confidential is the register voter data and the voter turnout data. The candidate data and elected candidate data, however, is public information. And we at the EMB side, there is a lot of effort before publicizing the data to have this check of what information is confidential and which information is not, so the sharing is done properly. In chapter 2, we also start to show some examples of countries in terms of how the electoral administrative data flows between different public entities. And the first two examples I'm showing here is on the left side, the flow electoral administrative data in Nepal and South Africa. These are systems, in these systems, the voters have to register themselves. This is an active registration system initiated by individuals. The electoral management bodies is actually in charge of all the 4 data types we discussed so far: the voter register, the candidate data, voter turnout data, elected candidate data. On the right side, in the example of Georgia, or Jordan and Bosnia-Herzegovina, we have a passive registration system in which the eligible voter records are taken from existing population registers and ID management systems. And the voters may still have a chance to verify their personal information and request some corrections. So these are some of the visuals that you will see in detail in the chapters. I want to draw your attention for 2 other types of data flows and 2 other types of data of public entities that may be in charge of data on the registered voter. The candidate data, the voter turnout data, the election results are in most of the cases in the hands of electoral management bodies, with a few exceptions when the national statistical offices may also be involved in the final stages related to results and elected candidate information. But in this particular case that I want to show you here is the role in Colombia of the National Civil Registry in actually having what they call an electoral census that is giving them the registered voters. Colombia is a case of hybrid registration. The persons that are eligible to vote may register actively or may just validate that information that EMBs is sharing with them. In France, we have on the right side in the model, we have a different example where the National Statistical Offices has a more central role with regard to developing a single electoral register, and also at the end of the elections to do the electoral data analysis. You also see in the case of France, for example, what is the flow of the data from different national, some national entities involved in organizing elections. Moving on to chapter 3. This chapter is about data collection processes that for the 4 electoral data systems that I mentioned several times by now. Basically, it has 3 purposes. It provides the understanding on what electoral data are collected and how they are obtained in different contexts. It shows the series of steps that EMBs follow to ensure data accuracy, impartiality, and objectivity. And this is important because we do want the official statistics to follow data quality criteria. And third, the chapter provides the information basis for partnerships and data sharing tools presenting in chapter 5. How is the information structured? So we have the 4 core electoral data systems. And in each section, we are discussing, we have a quick introduction on administrative purpose of the data. If needed, we give again the definition that is key for that particular section. Then we show what data are collected, including a quick discussion on the potential for data disaggregation, how data are collected, data quality assurance, the steps that the EMBs are taking to ensure that the data is of good quality, data dissemination by EMBs, and then the section concludes with a box on summary implications for the production of official statistics. We are not going to have time to go into details, but here is an example on the register voter data, what and how the data are collected. So two of the sections that I mentioned before. For example, what data are collected? First, you will see the principle. Each registered voter record contains a set of individual attributes that establish the eligibility of a person to vote in a particular election in a particular polling station, uniquely distinguishes the registered voter from all the other registered voters, and then enables the identification of that person in a polling station or when casting their vote remotely. And those of you who have worked with other registers recognize some of those characteristics that I just mentioned. So the typical attributes included in the voter registers are the name of the person, place and date of birth, sex, residence, and citizenship. And some of these may be already included in the law, in the electoral legal frameworks I was speaking earlier, as requirements for eligibility. For example, date of birth. Usually we have the a lower limit, 18 years typically, but in some countries from 60 to 21 years. And some of them may be coming from the regulations that EMBs are producing themselves just to facilitate the process of administration of elections. A personal identification number is common in many countries. And biometric data, ID photograph, fingerprints may also be included in some of the voter registers for the purpose of identifying the persons at the poll. So after discussing what data are collecting and when it comes to the attributes included, there is a discussion on the potential for disaggregation. In this particular case, the data to be disaggregated by sex and age category and by geographical areas. And then the personal identification number, that's also important because that is going to provide the potential for data linkages with other administrative data sources that NSO may access and may have the capability and the mandate to do. The next section the next subsection in that section is how the data are collected. And basically, we are discussing three broad types of voter registration: voter initiated registration or active registration, when the voters must register themselves, and administrative data from either population registers or from the civil registration or ID management system may be used to check veracity of the information submitted. At the opposite end, in the passive registration system, this is a system where the voter register is entirely generated from administrative data. Individuals don't have to do anything. If you want to correct something, you have to go and correct it in the population register or equivalent data system. And then in between all this, in between active and passive registration, there is a range of hybrid systems where you can see the individual or the EMB's role vary. for example, what we would call like a true hybrid system, the voters can actively register themselves, but the EMBs can also register persons on the basis of administrative records. Just moving forward, just a quick note on the data quality assurance by the EMBs, just to show that the EMBs are already taken a lot of steps to ensure data quality as part of organizing elections. And voter registers must be accurate and inclusive to enable the realization of the equal right to vote. Passive registration systems are expected to have complete coverage of eligible population, while active registration system may not reach full coverage, but should aim to be inclusive of groups with voting rights. So there are a couple of issues that are typically checked by the EMBs: the duplication of records, records of people who lost eligibility, incorrect or outdated information, or are underrepresentation of some population groups. And here there are some methods that EMBs are using: internal consistency checks, checks of voter records against civil and population records, and other comparisons and analysis. There are also additional elements contributing to data accuracy. On one side, as I mentioned, voters may be granted access to verify their own registration information. They can request corrections. And there could be also external assessments of voter registers. In the last part of each of these sections, I mentioned that there's going to be a point on data dissemination by EMBs and the schedule of their data release, because typically these have implications for official statistics on how the data could be shared. Could it be shared in aggregate form? Could be shared at individual level data? And here is a summary that is provided at the end of that section, that in most countries, register voter data are centralized. However, when it's not centralized, the NSOs may consider compiling the data from subnational units of EMBs or equivalent entities in charge of voter registrations from subnational levels. Typically, we would say in collaboration with other partners, because there is a little bit of work. EMBs may publish aggregated statistics on registered voters, including disaggregated by sex, age, category, and geographical areas, which NSO can utilize and can also archive to maintain long data trends. Alternatively, the NSOs may also request customized aggregated data tailored to their specific analytical needs. Sharing the microdata, when this is possible from the EMB side, has to follow legal requirements related to data protection during storage, analysis, and publication. And you'll see that a little bit more in the chapter, but also in the chapter 4 and 5 that are coming after chapter 3. So we would not have time today for going through all types of data, but basically we gave you a picture of what kind of information is in the voter registration data. There is also a section on candidate data, as I mentioned, on the voter turnout data, and then election results data. So you will have to check the draft publication, and hopefully you will provide us with some good comments so we can continue improving the draft. So here we are. Basically, you had a quick introduction to chapters 1, 2, and 3. And as I mentioned, this provide the basis for the next chapters 4 and 5. But before we are going to those chapters, we should have a quick discussion, comments, questions on what has been presented so far. And maybe, Vebion, I will stop sharing just so we can see each other for the moment.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Ionica. So what we have presented so far is kind of the foundational data that the NSOs can further utilize and use to produce statistics on elections and participation. And we have some comments in the chat. We really appreciate that those of you who have had a chance to look at the examples that have not already been kind of verified, that you give feedback on that. And I see from Nepal, we got the feedback that the figure there looks fine, but we should mention that the year and update the year, and to update that from the website. So if there are other comments or questions at this stage, do raise your hand. We have a question also from Uruguay about how the survey data and the administrative data can work together and perhaps mutually reinforce each other. This is something we will cover more in chapter 4 and 5 that will be presented after this round. But again, if there are some immediate feedback, it was a very information-heavy segment we had now, so it might take some time to digest it all. But if you have some more questions, do raise your hand and come forward. I see from Solly there is a question. Solly, will you take that in public from South Africa?
Good morning. Thank you so much for the presentation. I hope I'm audible enough.
Excellent.
Yes. For me, just a comment. I think in chapter 3, it's quite clear that the EMBs are making a lot of effort in terms of making sure that the data is of good quality. But if we bring the data into the statistical system, we do have quality frameworks that we need to subject all the administrative records. So I think in the guide, we may want to also indicate that aspect, that the NSOs, they're guided by statistical laws, but they're also guided by the quality frameworks that they need to adhere to. So we may want to just to elaborate more in terms of that aspect of the NSO, them themselves also applying the quality frameworks that they have within their domain. Thank you.
Thank you, Solly. That's a good observation and a good comment. Definitely, these kind of quality data requirements are important. There is another hand that has been raised. Henri Abou.
Merci. Je suis Abou Tanouki Henri de la Côte d'Ivoire, Agence nationale statistique. Sur le chapitre 1, il y a quelques confusions à mon niveau. Registre électoral et liste électorale. Pour la Côte d'Ivoire, nous faisons toujours une liste électorale. Est-ce à dire que, si je vous suis bien, la liste électorale est un sous-ensemble du registre électoral? Voici un peu ma préoccupation. Sur le cadre juridique de la Côte d'Ivoire, on parle de liste électorale, on ne parle pas de registre électoral. Alors, quand j'ai lu le chapitre 1, si j'ai bien suivi, je comprends bien que le registre électoral, la liste électorale est un sous-ensemble du registre électoral, si ma compréhension est exacte. Merci.
Ionica, did you get that?
I'm not sure I get it, and maybe when we will see the the information in writing, it will become clearer. But basically,
just to Ionica, this is Marie. If you want, I can translate again.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead, Marie.
He was asking if he wanted you to clarify. He was confused between the voters list and the registered voters list. No, the voters list and the registered voters. And he wanted to know if the voter list was a subset of the registered voters list.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
I think he got it right. The voter list are subset of the entire voter registers, and they are typically related to a polling station, right? So basically, you may have the voter register for the whole countries, but then each municipality or some smaller geographical areas that have their own polling station would have a particular list of voter register. But then there is also the other term that may be a bit confusing, and we can all aim to improve the guidance, is the information on voter turnout, which is the information on people who actually voted. And it could be, for example, in a country as Côte d'Ivoire, I'm not sure that I have all the information right now, that we are talking about maybe an active registration system in Côte d'Ivoire, and then based on that voter registers, the voter list may be distributed to the polling stations. And then based on those lists, each of the polling station would tally at the end of each day how many people voted. So there are three concepts. So I'm not sure I answered, but it's a good point to flag and to make sure that there is no confusion between the different terms.
Thank you, Ionica. There will also be a second round of questions and comments where you can perhaps also we can clarify even more if needed. And there was also a comment from Alejandro about the potential of the guidance in terms of building relationships between the NSOs and the EMBs. And this is exactly what we have been trying to do with this work. So then I think we will stop this segment. As I said, there will be chances to ask more questions, but then we will move on to the next chapters, chapters 4 and 5, where we will try to go a little bit more into detail on how the NSOs can utilize the data from the EMBs with some practical examples. So then I'll hand over to my colleague Silja Emmel, who has been instrumental in developing this part of the guide. Over to you, Silja.
Thank you so much, Vivian. Yes, Ionica, I'll just wait for the slides to come up. Or should I? Amazing. They're coming up. Yeah.
I am sharing, but if we
coming.
have a glitch again, you let me know.
Yes, perfect. Thank you so much. Let me just move this out of the way. Yes, so I will take you through the chapters 4 and 5. And for chapter 4, so we try to speak about the role of the NSO in adding value to electoral administrative data. And we try to be quite practical in the chapter. It's basically focusing on how the NSO can add value to electoral administrative data by integrating them into systems of official statistics. and also offering some solutions to the challenges that Ionica spoke about in chapters 1 to 3 already, or maybe not all of them, but if you read the chapters, you will read. It's basically the integrating of electoral data into official statistics creates an opportunity to examine political participation in more inclusive and granular ways, as many of the NSO colleagues might be well aware of. And this can help to shed further light on who participates and who is left out, and also where maybe targeted interventions may be needed to ensure that the democratic processes really reflect the voice of all segments of society. And then an important role for NSOs is also to provide the foundation for a more sustainable long-term monitoring of trends. So not just per election, but over a long span of elections. And we've divided the chapter 4 into 4 sections. And the first one is focusing on integrating, maintaining, and disseminating data on participation in elections. And we try to find a lot of examples of what NSO is doing already. And then the second one is on indicators for national and global reporting. And maybe I can already say here, so we are still in the process, of course, of fine-tuning and adjusting. And already in putting this together, we thought that maybe this chapter, this section should be the first one. So we didn't want to move it around now to confuse, but one of our thoughts was to put the indicators first. Then section 3 is going to showcase examples of what can be done when it comes to data analysis, visualization, and communication. And we found some examples already. And also if there are any colleagues here who have other examples they want to share, we're very happy to receive additional examples. And I think Vivian already said it, but we have not had time to contact all the NSOs that are presented in the examples yet, but we are in the process of doing that. So also there, if you are from one of the NSOs that is showcased here and you feel that the information should be changed, please reach out to us, but we will contact you. And then the 4th section of chapter 4 is, yes, thanks, is on data linkage. And now I'll jump into each section of chapter 4 and give you more detail. So on the first one, when it comes to what NSOs are already doing when it comes to integrating and maintaining and disseminating data on participation in elections, we have found a lot of examples actually. Yes, so governance statistics is a standalone domain of official statistics since 2023. And that affirms the role of NSOs in coordinating the production of official statistics. And thanks so much to the South African colleagues for flagging the importance of the national quality assurance frameworks. I think this goes very well together. So maybe we should explicitly include it in that section as well. Yes, and statistics on governance and its various dimensions, and the sub-dimensions they come from multiple data sources. And the NSO, as the coordinator of statistics, official statistics, has a quite important role in integrating the diverse sources. And when it comes to the integration of electoral administrative data into official statistics, it's quite different what is done across the different countries. And some countries are utilizing the data and others are not yet. So we've tried to find examples from countries that are already utilizing some of the electoral data where the NSOs are disseminating it in various ways. And the chapter is built up in a way where we, in the first part, we showcase some examples of open access databases. Then we have examples, yes, maybe this is the good way. So as you can see here, we have one example from Bolivia, from the homepage of the NSO, where you can see this is one table that we chose to showcase here, but there's more information on voting age population, eligible population, and type of participation. And then this data can be downloaded as well for the users. And then the second example for this section comes from the Dominican Republic. And as you can see on the left, under data and statistics, there's one section that is on governance and other community activities. And then under this, you have a lot of different options. And for example, municipal elections as the example here. And then you can get further into the detailed data sets. Yes, then the examples for the next one on thematic publications on political participation. We found one example from Indonesia, and it's sometimes also if the colleagues from the different countries have better translations, we're very happy to hear. We've tried to translate. So this is from a publication on political statistics, and it shows the House of Representatives members by gender. And you can see a quite long time series, which is maybe something NSOs can contribute with from 1955 to the 2024 election, divided into men and women. And then the second example is from Burkina Faso, from a governance dashboard, where it's basically showing the evolution of the number of parties also for a number of years from 2010 to 2016. Next slide, please. Then the second part of chapter 4 is, as I mentioned, we are considering to move it up one so that the chapter starts out with this, is focusing on the indicators on inclusive political participation that are derived from electoral data. They play a crucial role in national planning and international comparison, and of course also the global reporting. And consistent with the list of indicators proposed in the Handbook of Governance Statistics, as some of you, hopefully many, are familiar with, countries are encouraged to calculate and disseminate a minimum set of 4 key indicators based on electoral administrative data, and each with a specified minimum level of disaggregation. I'm not going to go into all the details here, but you have received the guidance, so you can read all the details there. And the indicators are voter registration and voter turnout, inclusive representation among candidates, and then inclusive representation among elected candidates. And for all of these 4 indicators, we have included information on the definition, then the rationale of the indicator, key terms, the calculation, data disaggregation, and the data source for denominator. The third chapter section of chapter 4 focuses, or we have tried to find examples of NSOs that are analyzing electoral data and visualizing them, and examples of communication. As you can see, the chapter has quite a few subsections. And so what is important to say maybe is that the NSO can play a key role in measuring the inclusivity of electoral participation, and can also support the effective communication of these insights to the public and policymakers. And then the guidance offers 3 principles for effective data analysis, visualization, and communication. And the first one is that it must address questions that matter to the users. Then the data analysis, visualization, and communication should adopt an intersectional perspective. And presentation of the analysis should be user-friendly, easy to access, and easy to interpret. And I'll show you a few examples now. Of course, there's much more information in the guidance, but just to give you an idea of what we have included here. So the first example is on work that has been published by NSOs on women's and men's participation in elections. And yeah, so this one is from the government of Andorra. And as you can see, some of them, they are not translated yet. We're working on that still. And this is, now I'm trying my Spanish, the municipal elections 2011 to 2023. And you can see the shares of men and women in the different elections. And then the second example is from Statistics Denmark, where there's a section on the homepage on, it's called Democracy and Management, and some basic information on the parliamentary election from 2022. And then a graph showing nominated and elected women in Danish parliamentary elections in percent. Yes, thank you. For the next examples, we have two examples from Finland. One is on engagement of young people in formal election process. And the second one is on participation of minority groups. And all of these were possible because there is there's analysis happening in the NSO with the data that was shared by the EMBs. Maybe for the sake of time, I'm not going to go much into detail there. Yes, thank you, Ionica. So the fourth part of chapter 4 is looking at data linkage for more in-depth analysis. Maybe also some of the Finnish examples, they make use of that, just to add to that. So when individual level data can be accessed from the EMBs, the NSOs have the possibility to link this data with other sources of official data. And that can be population registers, education, all kinds of other administrative data sources. And this data linkage makes it possible to carry out more granular analysis. And that can reveal patterns of electoral participation that goes beyond basic age, sex, and regional trends. And it can help for the users to better understand the different factors that influence political participation in the country. There are some preconditions for such data linkage. I think Ionica has mentioned it. The legal frameworks that allow for access to individual level data need to be in place. And it needs to be ensured that the protection of individuals' confidentiality is there. And the NSOs typically have technical expertise to carry out data linkage in ways that respect data confidentiality and complies with anonymization standards. We have two examples included here. They're more in the guidance. The one is from Statistics Sweden, and it's a detailed report on voter turnout in general elections, presenting statistics disaggregated by sex, age, and location. And it's linking electoral data with population register data and also register data on education and income. And then the second one is from Statistics Norway. So there we have an analysis of the participation and representation patterns among immigrants and their children born in Norway compared to the general population. And it's also done through data linkage between electoral data and the National Population Register and other registers such as education, labor market participation, and income. And in both cases, you can see how they're visualized here. The left one is Sweden and the right one is Norway. In both cases, it's possible because there is unique identifiers that are used in all the different registers. Then for chapter 5, we have focused on partnerships, principles, and practices in data sharing between EMBs and NSOs. As just to repeat, partnerships between EMBs and NSOs, they can make it possible to produce much richer and more comprehensive statistics on political engagement. And The collaboration is supported by the role of the NSO as the coordinating authority for all statistical production in the country, and ideally mandated by the country's statistical legal framework in accordance with the fundamental principles of official statistics. And well, in some, back one, please. Yes, so in some countries, it's the administrative data access is still limited. And in this chapter, we've tried to address this with some quite practical or concrete tools and frameworks to foster partnerships. And the first section of chapter 5 is on how to build this cooperation. And then the second section of chapter 5 focuses on different models of sharing of data. Yes, so in terms of how to build this cooperation, we have tried to summarize different modes of doing that. And it's, of course, the data sharing is best supported by formal agreements, and that could be MOUs or the establishment of working groups. And it should be said that countries have very different contexts, and in some regulations require formal approval for collaboration between the different agencies, and it might be necessary to begin with the formal agreements. And then in other countries, informal cooperation can be a starting point, and then on the basis of this, formal agreements can be formulated. It could also be that a combination of formal arrangements and more flexible ways of cooperating could be a solution. So it's very dependent on the country context. The different mechanisms for facilitating cooperation could be very informal exchanges, such as coffee meetings or phone calls between the NSO and the EMB, as this is on the most informal level, and then meetings between technical staff, of course, meetings at management level as well, joint workshops and trainings between the two institutions, then formal agreements such as memorandums of understanding, and working groups and interagency meetings. And then when it comes to the different models of electoral data sharing, we have tried to focus on the different forms that electoral administrative data can be made available. And that, of course, depends on many different factors. But what we have put together, or we've structured it in a way that the main data formats can be non-searchable or searchable documents that are published by EMBs. Then there can be statistical aggregates that are published by the EMBs. There can be customized statistical aggregates that are produced at the request of the NSO. And then there's individual level data. Yes, and then we have one section for each of those sources. That was all. Yes, and of course, this was very condensed as well, like Ionika's presentation. But if you want more information of any of those, I can just encourage you to go into the chapters and read. Thank you.
Excellent, Celia, and thank you for presenting the last two chapters. So we now have a few minutes left for some additional questions or comments. What has been presented, as you can see, that it's been very much on a spectrum, from some countries that do not, where the NSOs do not really have an active role and do not reproduce or produce election statistics. Some do, whereas others do really add value to the data. So we have some questions here. Dr. Jean Faustin Caffo, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you for giving me the floor. First of all, I want to congratulate all the presenters for the work very well done. I just want to make some few comments to summarize and make sure I'm having the good understanding of the framework. According to the presentations, we can summarize that all the NSOs should have a good understanding of the methodology on the concept and how the electoral process is ongoing in the different countries. This is first of all. Second, we should identify all the stakeholders in order to produce electoral statistics. Third, we should know the legal framework, who is having the mandate. And lastly, now we managed to involve all the stakeholders according to the national context to discuss and make influence between all the stakeholders for partnership to make it possible to address the issue of producing the national report on elections. And at least I would like to highlight that the framework presented is suitable for a context where you have all the information technology, which is very well developed to make it sure that people can vote directly with the electronic system and so on. But for instance, in our countries, it's not yet the same. We still have polling station with papers where you will come and select one paper of your candidate, go in the polling and then drop it. Go and select among those who have given to you, come back now and put the envelope in the box. At the end of the election in my country, for example, the box are open during the day of the elections. At the end of the day, the box are open and the papers are being counted. You cannot link the choice to the voter. So we still have challenges in some countries where the electronic system is not yet available. So we still arrange it and customize it to make it possible for the traditional ways of producing statistics. From polling stations, we will have statistics from polling stations that we will aggregate it to the national level. So that is the comment I wanted to make. Thank you very much for all. This is a great opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. And I just wanted to add that also in Norway, where I come from, we use paper ballots. So that it's not an electronic election, but the voter list, that's electronic. And via the system that we have established, it is possible to, using the kind of all the confidentiality, the rules of confidentiality, the National Statistical Office get a copy of the voting list and can then see which groups participated, which groups took part in the election, and produce statistics on that. Not because we're interested in the kind of individual level data, but to produce the statistics. But thank you for your observation. It's a very good point.
Thank you. The honor is mine.
So are there other comments? I see some from the chat. Silja, Ionica, do you have some additional reflections you want to share?
Just a quick reflection from my side. Indeed, one of our objectives was to have a guidance that responds to different electoral contexts, but also in terms of access to ICT. So maybe right now it's a little bit hidden in the text, and we need to make it more visible. But we did notice that indeed in many countries we have paper-based systems, not necessarily with regard to the voter register per se, but the list, as you explain, Vebjorn, they may be paper. So basically, at the end of the polling day, the polling station is going to have like a tally, like going through the list, how many people voted, which is like the most basic type of information. And we still should have, we could still have that challenge that the speaker mentioned, that these data are not centralized. So we need to highlight indeed the different challenges that different systems may have. But also just to say that never ever we will have a linking on the choice of voter. So we shouldn't know that. None of the EMBs should know with whom a particular voter voted. We just need to know if the person voted or not. So that's in all the countries. That's the secrecy of the vote. We shouldn't touch on that. But we are going to make more visible, emphasize those parts that you brought to our attention.
Maybe very quickly also, I mean, I just said it, but we ran through a lot of information very quickly. So there is more detail in the actual guidance for those that didn't have a chance to read through it yet. And especially then, if you find any parts that you think should include more information or should maybe take other contexts into account, it would be great if you let us know.
Thank you to both of you. I can't see more hands raised or more questions in the chat. There were some who thanked for the presentations, and thank you for that feedback. I think maybe we can just show the last slide that we had prepared, where we say a few words about the next steps for the task team. So as we have said, we look forward to receive your comments on this draft document, and if you can share that by the 29th of September, that would be very good. Do review one or all chapters, and especially for those cases where your country is described, do give us feedback whether it's well represented. We have been in contact with many of you, but not all. And if available, do share additional information about your own national context. And we have to reiterate that we want to thank you, those who have already contributed to the guidance as it is now. So the revised draft will now be prepared for the global consultation. It will then be sent out to all the national statistical offices of the world in a process that is handled by the UN Statistics Division. And then we will get some feedback on that from the NSOs, from the whole international statistical community. And then we will prepare a revised draft that will be finally sent to the UN Statistical Commission, and it will be handled and dealt with there in March next year. So you haven't seen the last of us. We will be back with more information about this. And again, thank you to those of you who participated today. And thank you also to those of you who have provided examples and contributed to the end result, or the draft result that we have now. So I think with those words, and if I can't see any more hands raised, I think we will end this session. And I wish you all a great day. And for those of us who are at the end of the day, a good evening and a good afternoon. Thank you so much.